Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is Dr. Elsie Ko, the CEO and founder of Lead Physician, the online leadership program for physicians. And I'm so happy and grateful that I have Dr. Jennifer Hunt here today with me. You probably know who she is. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi there.
Jennifer is all over social media now. She's pretty famous. So if you don't know her, you're going to get to know her right now. She's the chair of Pathology, Immunology, and Laboratory Medicine at the University of Florida in Gainesville, Florida, where she just moved. So congratulations on that position.
Thank you. Quite the moving time.
And she moved from Arkansas, and she's a keynote speaker. She's a TEDx speaker. She's written a book called Unlocking Your Authentic Self, which we're going to get into. And she coaches women on imposter syndrome. So let's just talk about that first, Jennifer. Why is imposter syndrome? Why is that your niche? And what is that? Can you please define that for us?
Sure. Well, to start with, I didn't intend to become an expert on imposter syndrome. It kind of happened to me as I started coaching women physicians and recognizing that so many of the people I was coaching, women physicians, had this pervasive imposter syndrome, so that it became a conversation with almost every single client. And that's really how I got into studying it, and how I became very focused on making this my personal mission. So, in terms of what imposter syndrome is, there's not a standard or unified definition for it. It's all over the map. But I use a simple definition, and that is that it's the state of being when someone doesn't appreciate and value their own skills and talents as much as the outside world does of them. So, when we see ourselves less skilled and less talented and less incredible than the rest of the world sees us, that is classic imposter syndrome.
Yeah. And how do people recognize that they have it?
Oh, it's not hard for people to recognize that they have it, but they usually don't want to say out loud that they have it. So recognizing it is actually pretty easy for people. Most of the people who have imposter syndrome often will have fleeting thoughts of being a fake or a fraud. They will think that they're never worthy. They're never up to it. They question their own ability to accomplish things that other people are sure they can do.
Mm-hmm. So you know what? Sometimes I've caught myself, and I'm, because through study, I'm a lot more aware of the voices in my head saying things like that. But how do you get people to even be aware of what they're doing? How do you change that? And maybe you can give us like some 2 or 3 tips on how do we get that out of our heads?
So you hit on something really important there, Elsie, really important, and that is learning to hear that voice inside your head. Now, a lot of times that voice is loud and clear, and it's saying mean things, like it's a nasty voice that's screaming at you. But that's not always the case, and that's only the most obvious examples. So many times when you start to listen really hard, you're going to hear the inner critic imposter syndrome voice in things you never even recognized were the inner critic. So one of the very first teaching points and skills that I teach clients and in my group program is about listening to the inner critic and hearing it and cataloging the voices that you hear. Really interesting to see how people progress over a week of practice from going, I didn't really hear it much, to, oh my gosh, she never shuts up.
That's so true. And you know what's so funny? Sometimes having a really good friend who listen to what you're saying, and that's why a coach is so valuable, like you is, I've had people tell me, even to this day, when I've developed myself so much, I've had people still tell me, Elsie, I have a mastermind group, and they're like, Elsie, I hear what you're saying, and did you know that you're saying this? And I'm like, oh yeah, I did say that, didn't I? And it's funny how it becomes like reality to you. Sometimes imposter syndrome to me is not reality, but you think it is.
One of the other key tools and skills that you need, that I teach and I want people to learn, is to start separating out that inner critic from truth. That inner critic is
Exactly.
not telling you the truth. It's not even your friend. and yet we absorb it as truth, and we think, oh, no, 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 that is true. No, 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 it's not true. And one of the tools that can be really useful for separating that out is to ask the inner critic to prove it.
That's so
Prove it.
true. Right.
And the inner critic can never prove it because it's not true.
Right. We are not our thoughts. We're not defined by our thoughts. And until you know that, you're going to keep doing what you're doing and being stuck. So that's so great. So it's an 8-week program that you take people through?
Yeah, so I have a group coaching program, mostly for women physicians, although it's completely applicable to men and non physicians. I've also worked with lawyers. Any kind of high achieving professional is going to have similar experiences. And it's an 8-week program where we go through as a group the key concepts and tools for dealing with and combating imposter syndrome. It's I love it. I love working with people in that kind of setting, but it's also incredible to see the transformations that happen. I just am so rewarded all the time by watching the participants grow from where they start to where they finish. And then I love it even more when I hear of all their successes down the road.
So good. Can you give us an example of maybe a particular client who went through this and then kind of their before and after, Jennifer?
Yeah, I've had some really great transformation experiences with people, and I don't want to use anything too specific, but I will tell you that I've seen people start the program in a place. I can think of a couple of people who started in a place that was really low, and yet, of course, they're high achieving, incredible, talented women that anyone from the outside would go, "Are you crazy? You are amazing." And they would say, "I'm not amazing. That is completely untrue. I don't know who you are, but I am not amazing." And transform themselves into people who could accept and love and be proud of their incredible accomplishments, to the point of then applying for leadership positions where they could excel even further. And that's just the best thing that can happen.
That's so good. You're giving them tools have the courage to move to the next level of their life. That's so good. Can you tell us so the book?
Yeah, the
What
book.
was the purpose of the book? It's called Unlocking Your Authentic Self. Why did you write this book?
I wrote it purely out of guilt, truly out of guilt. And here's where the guilt was. I have a waiting list of like 200 people for my group program. And I hate that. It's like weighs on me every day. I'm like, oh my gosh, this group of people who want to do this. And it's only 15 people for 8 weeks and there's only one of me. And so the book really was born out of this desire to scale the work and the program and the tools and the learning to a broader audience where women physicians could tap into it without getting off my waiting list. And so that was really where the book came from. Well, plus I had done all the research and all the work, and I thought it would be great to put this into one place so that people can access it.
That's so good. And is this all only for women, this book?
Oh, yeah. No, it's for anybody. It's for women and men and any gender, any assignment, any choice can read this book and benefit from it. It does have examples of women for the most part, but it's applicable to absolutely anybody. Anybody who feels that underappreciation, that self underappreciation of imposter syndrome, can benefit from going through the book and learning the tools.
So good. So what do you think is the prevalence of imposter syndrome in the public?
Well, I've worked with a lot of women and I've only had one that didn't have it. So
Wow.
really high.
Yeah.
Now, we're a selected group. I mean, these are women physicians. They're high achieving. They're naturally going to be
Inclined to find you.
and critical of themselves, both,
Yeah.
both
Mhm.
things. But it's extremely high. I have people coming out all the time saying to me, saying, "Oh my gosh, I just didn't know the name." And this is
Wow.
the other one. I thought I was the only one. I hear that a lot too.
Yeah, sometimes when you've been studying this for so long, you think that everybody knows about it, but people don't.
Yeah,
And
you do. You
you
think
should-
it's just common language, but it's not.
yeah. So tell us, Jennifer. Thank you so much for all of this and taking the time out of your busy day to be here. Um, I know one thing I wanted to say and mention about you that I found really interesting that you told me before is that you're a pathologist, right?
Yeah.
And yet, for the last few months, when your book was launching in March, just tell everybody what you have been doing, because I thought that was really hilarious, and it kind of relates to imposter syndrome.
Oh, it definitely relates to, or at least it makes it happen. So, my book came out on March 8th, and on March 13th, we opened at our institution. I was at the University of Arkansas then. We opened our COVID triage unit in a basement garage and underneath the building. And a plea went out at 5 o'clock that said, "There's no physicians down here. Can someone come?" And I said, "Well, sure. I'm an MD. I'll go." I showed up. I will say it was absolutely freezing cold. That was
When's the last time you practiced, in front facing with a patient doing, triage?
probably my third year of medical school. Probably 20 years ago. I'm going to go with.
God,
Yeah,
wow, you
really.
volunteered.
And I didn't realize what would happen, but when I arrived, the person who was there said, "Oh, great, you're here. See you later. Bye." And I was like, "Oh no, you can't leave me. I can't be alone. I can't do this. I don't know what I'm doing."
I'm
I
just
just
a pathologist.
did say that. And she said, "Oh, I didn't know either. It's fine. Just go with the
I
flow."
didn't know either.
This is very reassuring. So,
Okay.
so, and it really was the very first opening. So nobody really knew what they were doing.
Right.
And I got the plea the next day from the chief medical officer to come back because I'd been there the day before. And then Sunday, I got the plea again. "Please come. We have nobody. Can you come?" So by Monday, I was the most experienced physician in the drive-through. So I
Unbelievable.
inherited this and became the director of the drive-through triage unit within a week. And everyone who heard it thinks it's bizarre, a pathologist running a drive-through unit. But the fact is, I run things. I'm good at running things. I can organize things. I can do throughput. I mean, and I had the skills deep back in my memory to.
And you got the skills to, plow through that terror barrier and outside your comfort zone.
Well, I certainly did by Monday. I'm not sure about Friday night. Friday night, I was really feeling the imposter syndrome rise,
So
thinking,
you practice what you preach, and thank you so much for stepping up. I mean, I don't know how many physicians in your position would actually do what you did. So that says a lot about you, Jennifer. Thank you.
it did end up being as terrible as all of this has been. It did end up being an incredibly rewarding and rich experience. I know how many lives I touched, and they told me every single day, and it was really, really a rewarding experience. I don't want to do it again, though. I think I'm done with that phase of my life.
Jennifer, so tell the audience how they can reach out to you. And I know you got a growing list of clients who want to take your course. How do they get on that list?
Sure. So getting on the list is actually pretty easy. It's on my website, which is www.jenniferhuntmd.com. There's a page for the course and for imposter syndrome, and in there is the assessment that you can take. So you can take an assessment for imposter syndrome, and that gets you onto my mailing list where you'll hear about the new cohorts as they open up. And at the moment, it is really geared towards women physicians. I do want to do a men physician cohort, so please don't hesitate. If other genders want to take it, please don't hesitate. I do plan to open that up.
That's so
Um,
good.
sure.
Yeah,
And it's
thank you
easy
so
to get
much.
it's really easy to get onto the list. And also in there's a contact page, and you can learn more about my coaching practice and everything else that I do.
Also, you give talks, right? And
Yeah.
virtual talks too these days. But you've given in-person talks and you've been on camera, I know, on TV. So people can
Yeah,
reach out to you for
although
that.
are we ever going to travel again? I don't know.
Yeah,
But
I don't
I
know.
do virtual workshops too.
Yeah. I mean, I thank you so much for doing what you're doing. I think this is foundational. And I think bringing this to awareness that physicians, in order to step up to leadership, I think there's two big components of leadership training. And number one is learning about imposter syndrome and how your self-image really drives your career and your entire life, actually. And then the other component is the conceptual learning of, the actual the knowledge of leadership and what does that mean. But if you don't have this first piece, which is what Jennifer teaches, you're never going to get the second piece. You need both together. Would you agree?
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Right. Anyways, thank you so much. Thank you for everyone for watching. Again, this is Dr. Elsie Coe from Lead Physician. If you're interested in giving us a topic that you want to share to our physician communities to improve our leadership in healthcare and help with healthcare transformation, please reach out to me. Very interested in listening to you and having you share your story. Goodbye.
Thank you.